very responsive. It moves instantly unless you don't want it to. So, I can go in here and put a kind of a portamento on that movement. And make it move a little slower. So. The idea here is that now we have access to pretty much all the tools of electronic sound production, and and like you can go in here and create a virtual MIDI knob, drag this onto a CC control, and now use this CC value to control a synth or a DAW or whatever other effect you want. So in this way, we're kind of building this modular language for taking things that happen on the drum and turning them into usable objects to interact with electronic processes. This could be used for lighting, it could be used for anything you want, really. It's we're creating a symbolic language out of the essence of drumming. And so timbre is just one parameter. There's also velocity and speed. So here's a speed controller. So if I deactivate this timbre controller and instead use speed to control this pitch, so it's better if I put some smoothing on it. You want speed to be a little bit smoother. Make it so that it responds only when I go really fast. So you can use it to practice your rolls. I haven't practiced technique in a while, so no, it's a little busy. I got made fun of on Instagram for having pinkies fly out. So, I guess I gotta hit my stick control again. You can combine all of these things to create very, very expressive situations. So, let's see. Oh, I need to get this back to normal. So on this, I've kind of done something a little tricky. I had it here so that when I access the stamped sound, it pitches up and also changes a low pass filter cutoff frequency. I can turn it off by just a little taste of the kind of stuff you can do now, just with the technique of drumming. This can be applied to the entire kit. You can the things that DJs do with knobs that you can't tell what they're doing. You can't necessarily tell what I'm doing here, but I'm playing and you're watching me do something, and I know what's happening, and you're hearing something incredible happen that is related to the things that I'm doing on the drum. And every drum stroke matters. Every which way I hit it is important if I want it to be. So part of the concept here is that by tracking the timbral areas of the drum and by stacking controllers like this, we can scale however complex we want the system to be. We can scale how deeply we want to follow the acoustics of the drum. I can make this list as long as I want. I can make a timbral connection between the center of the drum and any other region of the drum. And I can stack all those different connections and make them control some electronic process. Thereby, the limit of this process, it approaches the true complexity of the acoustic object. And you can go as far as you want with that. So it could just be a trigger drum if you want, or you can stack as many as you possibly can, and every parameter of this acoustic object then has some effect on electronic sound output. The idea is to turn the art of drumming into, to abstract it to a level where it can then have a one-to-one map between electronic processes. And now drumming is a key into a new form of creating music with electronic sound. And so this approach is not just specific to the drums. Every instrument has this kind of, every acoustic instrument has this level of timbral interaction, and that's where that's what differentiates players from each other. It's what allows you to master an acoustic instrument. It's mastering electronic instruments. It's a totally different process. There are masters of modular synths and of Ableton. I've gotten to see some people at that level, and it's incredible, but it's a completely different mode of thinking. It's a completely different mode of interaction with music. And I love it, and I want to be able to interact with it. And so that's what this is aiming to do, is really to blend these two art forms in a way that is musically meaningful and ultimately expresses the power of this instrument. There's a certain genius to the physicality of the instrument. The physical elements of the instrument are tied to the compositional elements, to the acoustic elements, to the sonic elements. And when you see a drummer play, it's not just the kind of the choices of when to land on what note. It's the body is involved in a way that links physicality to the compositional process. To these kind of Apollonian and Dionysian elements are really equally important on the drums. And so we want to be able to access that, but use electronic sounds. And so that's what we're really aiming for here. So I want to invite Greg Fox up to talk a little bit about his process and his approach to using sensory.
Okay, cool. Hi. So yeah, I've known Takayal now for a while, 5 years or 6 years or something, and we were in bands. We were in bands that had the same manager for a little while.
Oh yeah.
And we met at South by Southwest, and
The Rock Lottery.
yeah, it was a hot day in Austin. I remember I was playing with a wet washcloth on my head. Anyway, we met and we became friends and admired each other's drumming. And then a couple of years ago, Takayal said, I've got this idea, I'm going to grad school, I'll see you in a couple of years. All right. And then about a year ago, he called me up and said he was done or ready. And he came over to my studio and brought sensory into my life. And I've done a lot of attempting to explain what it is to people and how it works, but Takayal does a better job of that than I do. But more so, I can just say how meaningful it's been to be participating in its development and using it. I use it with all the bands I play in one way or another, whether it's just to trigger things or to control parameters or both. And I'm also using it for all the solo work I do now too. I'm making a solo record with it. And the more time I spend learning about it and the more time I spend exploring the possibilities of it, the bigger the boundaries of the record get because it's so deep. And it's given me a different understanding of the drums acoustically than I had before, just because of my increased awareness of what each parameter does, how it can be used, how you can relate them and link them to each other. The way I've been using it is mainly to create. What I do basically is, the way I think of it is I set up sound environments that are populated by, after I set up the parameters of that world and the architecture of that world or that environment, I then enter it with my gesture and use the way that I gesture on the drums to sort of animate different objects in that world. That's the way I think about it. It's not, I'm not a songwriter per se. I think people tend to describe my work as avant-garde, to say the least. But it's really effective, and I've definitely learned, the first things I was trying to do when I was playing with sensory, I was crashing my computer because of how much I was getting to do, and then I just realized, oh, I was just totally doing the wrong thing. You can do this much more easily, directly in sensory.
It's also a lot of bugs.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been part of the progression of it, so. But all bugs considered, I mean, I've been using it live for about a year. Sometimes with Talakael's help and sometimes on my own. I mean, I've taken it to festivals. I did a performance at the Kitchen in New York a week or two ago. That was fantastic, just really successful. I mean, it's an exploration for me. I'm really learning about it, and every time I sort of take it out into the world and try something new with it. I mean, every time I play live, I do something different with it. I make something new. I preset something. Then just, well, let's see how this sounds, And it's just I feel like I'm playing it. I mean, I'm a drummer. I'm at heart deeply a drummer. It's my life, it's my community, and I feel more and more strongly about what it means to be a drummer in the world right now. It's just my trip, but there you go. But the way that this has allowed me to interact with another dimension of sound, and really, it's almost like synesthetic. It's really, it opens up this window that I didn't even know was there before. I've been I feel like I could sort of say, in my solo work and in the work I want to hear and the work I was making, it was as if I was blindfolded in a room looking for a window, And then this came along, and it's the blindfold came off, and I saw the window and opened it and took a step through it. It's just opened up just so much possibility. It's I thought that the solo record would be out right now, and I'm still not done with it because it continues to open up and expand the boundaries of, well, maybe there aren't actually boundaries. It's just really the boundaries are my understanding of how to interact with the system. And then every once in a while, it's I was oh, there's a new software update. He comes over, and we meet up, and he shows it to me. I'm oh my god! It just keeps getting more. It just keeps getting more exciting for me. And I feel when I describe it to people ask me about it as the word sort of starts to spread. For me, it's sort of, okay, so imagine how revolutionary the guitar pickup was, I mean, this is way more expansive than that revolution for the guitar, What this does for the drum set, and what it does for the drummer is extremely significant, especially as I was saying, at a time where a lot of times drummers are kind of, not getting the sun that they should be in this world. I also just want to say, I guess I'll do a little bit of playing, but before I do that, this festival is amazing, and I find a lot of parallels between the, how would you say, sort of what the drum community feels like and what the synthesis community feels like. I wasn't aware of that before I came to this festival, but it's really, there's a lot of parallel, and it's exciting that this software is bridging that gap in a certain way and creating sort of a trade route or something between these two worlds, where, I mean, and the other, there's a double edge to that sword, because now I'm out there salivating over gear that I otherwise wouldn't really care about. and now I know what I can do with it when I use, I mean, that's the performance I did the other day. We rigged one drum to one mother unit each. I had a rack with 4 mothers. We had a drum per mother. And then I had friends who played modular come and run CV out from the modular into their rigs. And it was crazy. I mean, it was insane, but it was fun. And some of it sounded, I mean, it was 4 hours long, so some of it's gonna sound good, some of it's gonna sound great.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like it just keeps expanding. And anyway, just as far as where I see things going, as far as there just is a certain community aspect in the drumming world that is special, and I don't see it among other musicians when I'm at festivals or when I'm touring or things like that. It's the drummers tend to be there's whatever, I don't want to toot our horn, but there is a parallel there with the synth folks, and it's cool to sort of like, I feel like there's this meeting happening via this program, and I don't know, it's exciting.
All right, thanks, man. Yeah, thank you. Whatever, we'll just mess around with your sounds, but just whatever you hear. All right, is this thing going?
You did it, I didn't really
All right.
get it set up.
I feel like I'm doing like a comedy set.
I'm
impact sounds and close sounds like glass shattering and just like, you know, people screaming and just all different kinds of sounds, footsteps. There's like a BBC sound library that it's immense. It's like 13 gigabytes of world recordings, like animals, people, you know, some marketplace in Turkey, like somebody taking out the trash. It's just like every sound. And so just like throwing them on the drums and just creating an art. I mean, it's just, the way sound is physical, right? So it's like you're actually affecting the space in this very real physical way. So you can do like make things wavy.
They're like microphones. They function like standard microphones. They plug into a standard interface, but they're not normal microphones. They're designed to isolate the sound of the drum from any other sound of the drum. So they sense directly the vibrations on the drum head and on the riff. But they're mono. It's just a standard audio XLR. Yeah. Yeah, so right here's this is our sample library, and this is your sample library. That's just your desktop. So you can drag and drop samples from wherever. Yeah.
Do you see this extending to like symbols?
Yes, we're working on it. Oh, he's got the mic.
So the kick drum, I'm assuming it's a little more limited to like velocity as opposed to the toms.
I use open and close, so like letting it ring or digging in, and I use that as a nice tempo range. And then I use like the shell and the rim and stuff. And
I also play with a double kick, and you can get a trigger so you get an assignment for each beater.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean,
and also for the top of the.
But you know, you can do whatever you want. You can hit it with a drumstick and have that be a feature. It's pretty open, however you want to interact with it.
What about recording the performance data in conjunction with the AW?
Yeah, so right now you can go in and design MIDI and send MIDI over to the AW and record the MIDI performance. And I've done that a lot, and it's very useful. You can swap sounds after the fact and stuff. You can also just record the audio out of the box. We're working on a version. This is version 1. We haven't even released it. But we're working on a full recording capability, linear programming kind of style that will allow you to do a lot more. And this is just the beginning. Timbre, speed, velocity are the first 3 on that list, and that list is going to grow and become more and more abstract. So higher levels of musical concepts like phrasing, cues, things like this, you'll be able to use to program events in the sound. And so that's going to be working more towards the kind of linear control of performance. But yeah, we're going to add recording capability, but it won't be with version 1. It'll be like version 1.2 later. Yeah.
Are you planning on ever trying to create software that can just be used with synthesizers to create a drum sound? Have you if you're not a drummer?
No. Well, we want people to be able to interact with electronic sound in a physical way. So you don't have to be a drummer to use this. It's really fun to just kind of play. You should try playing around with it back at the booth.
Everybody's a drummer.
Yeah, that's the word. So to me, if you have a non-drummer who's never used a sample pad and never played the drums, this is way more fun and way more kind of musically enlightening and interesting, and leads to more interesting compositional choices. I think it's a better access point. So.
How much of this was used as an artwork?
None.
None of it, so it's a lot of electronic stuff came from wire.
Yeah.
For Greg, you perform with Glenn Bromley symphonies with that?
No.
Oh, yeah, that's a different performance.
Well, I mean, yeah. When I was playing with Frank, I just played the drums.
Okay,
He-
I was
he-
gonna ask, I thought you used
acoustic.
that, I was gonna ask about that.
No.
Okay.
Acoustic drums are still great.
There's no great.
They're the best. Come on.
Yeah.
There's so many options, and as a musician, I can get paralyzed by having so many options. So, are there any? I use some payment for Greg. That's really good. Like, how do you limit?
Blinders. Well, that's one thing. Is like actually, yeah. One way. That's a good question. One way is by just sort of limiting the parameter or the boundary where you're gonna like look. You know, like I'm not gonna look for ideas, or I'm not gonna like seek. I'm not gonna like this is a little box in my brain, and that's what I'm gonna look for the creativity to fill. You know.
Yeah.
And it's just, okay, just fill up this part. I'm not really looking for what's outside of it. But then another thing that I'll do is I'll decide, the way I work more often than that is I'll make the decision in advance to just let each decision be the final decision. So there's no return. It's like every time I make a gesture, that's it. And so like, for example, I'll set up drum sets on sensory where I'll just, okay, that's what that sound does. Okay, that's that sound. It's just, I'm not cycling through the sample libraries. I have them. I pick one, throw it on. That's what it is, you know? I mean, it keeps it evolving. It keeps it changing.
You can take one last question.
We're going to ship in about 6 weeks. So we're in production right now, and everything's coming together.
Yeah.
Take the last question.
Hi. So on the interface, I see a VST selector there.
Yeah, that's if you want to use like battery or something.
It's not like third-party plugins.
Oh,
that
yeah,
are compatible.
Well, we're not doing VST effects yet. We might add it. It's just a huge headache to deal with third-party VSTs.
does it
If
make
you're
the
building a
software
software from scratch. Yeah, to like save presets, and it's a nightmare. So I don't have any plugins on this computer, but you can load a battery right here and use other samplers or synths in the slots. You can also run them standalone and send MIDI over in that way. This cuts down on latency because you're not having two rounds of I/O.
One last thing, definitely come check out our booth if you have more questions or want to check it out more closely. Also, tomorrow, Ian Chang, who's the drummer for Sunlux, is going to be doing a performance in this room at 3:30. It'll be a half-hour solo, just using sensory percussion, so definitely come check that out. He's also been using it for a while.